What if I told you that the morning ritual millions of people depend on to start their day is actually a slow poison that's systematically breaking down their bodies? That the innocent cup of coffee or tea you reach for every morning is part of a progressive chain of addiction that could lead to substances far more dangerous? That what we casually call habits are actually chemical dependencies that Ellen White, over 120 years ago, identified as the silent destroyers of human health and character. This isn't about being extreme or judgmental. This is about revealing hidden truths that could save your life and the lives of those you love. Ellen White didn't just warn about alcohol and tobacco, substances we now know are dangerous. She exposed the deceptive nature of what seem like harmless everyday stimulants, showing how they create a progressive pathway to more serious addictions. What makes her insights absolutely mind-blowing is that she understood the biochemistry of addiction, the psychology of dependence, and the social consequences of substance abuse decades before science had the tools to prove her right. Today, I'm going to share these shocking revelations that expose the hidden dangers of substances you probably consider completely safe. Are you ready to discover the truth about the silent poisons that might be secretly destroying your health? Before we dive into these potentially life-saving revelations, I need you to hit that subscribe button and comment below, telling me where you're watching from around the world. This information could literally save lives, and your engagement helps these vital health truths reach people who desperately need them. Today's insights come from chapters 26 and 27 of Ellen White's The Ministry of Healing, titled Stimulants and Narcotics and Liquor Traffic and Prohibition. Written in 1905, these chapters contain some of the most prophetic and scientifically accurate information about addiction and substance abuse ever recorded. Ellen White's understanding of how these substances affect the body, mind, and spirit was so advanced that modern addiction medicine is still catching up to her insights. Let me start with something that will shock you about substances most people consider completely harmless. Ellen White wrote, "Under the head of stimulants and narcotics is classed a great variety of articles that, altogether used as food or drink, irritate the stomach, poison the blood, and excite the nerves. Their use is a positive evil." Notice what she's doing here. She's grouping together substances that most people in her time, and even today, would never think to connect. She understood that stimulants and narcotics operate on the same basic principles, even when their effects seem different. This classification was revolutionary in 1905 and remains cutting-edge today. Modern neuroscience has validated Ellen White's insight completely. Research has shown that all addictive substances, whether stimulants like caffeine or depressants like alcohol, affect the same brain reward pathways. They all trigger dopamine release, create tolerance, and can lead to dependence. What Ellen White understood intuitively, science has now proven through sophisticated brain imaging technology. But here's what's truly remarkable about Ellen White's approach. She understood the progressive nature of addiction. Listen to this profound observation. Men seek the excitement of stimulants because for the time the results are agreeable. But there is always a reaction. The use of unnatural stimulants always tends to excess, and it is an active agent in promoting physical degeneration and decay. She knew that stimulants don't just affect you while you're using them. There's always a comeback, a crash, a price to pay. And more importantly, she understood that the very nature of stimulant use tends toward increasing consumption. This understanding of tolerance and escalation was decades ahead of addiction medicine. Current research in addiction neurobiology has proven Ellen White absolutely correct. Studies have shown that stimulant use does indeed create tolerance, requiring increasing amounts to achieve the same effect. Research has documented that the crash following stimulant use is a real neurobiological phenomenon involving dopamine depletion and neurotransmitter imbalance. Now let's examine Ellen White's shocking revelations about substances most people consider completely safe. She wrote, "In this fast age, the less exciting the food, the better. Condiments are injurious in their nature. Mustard, pepper, spices, pickles, and other things of a like character irritate the stomach and make the blood feverish and impure." She understood that even common food seasonings could create an addictive pattern. She saw that highly stimulating foods create cravings for more stimulating substances. This insight about the progression from mild stimulants to stronger ones was remarkably advanced for her time. Modern research has validated this progression principle. Studies have shown that people who consume large amounts of caffeine, spicy foods, and other stimulating substances do indeed have higher rates of substance abuse. The concept of gateway substances isn't limited to illegal drugs. It includes everyday items that overstimulate the nervous system. Ellen White even understood the psychology behind this progression. The inflamed condition of the drunkard's stomach is often pictured as illustrating the effect of alcoholic liquors. A similarly inflamed condition is produced by the use of irritating condiments. Soon, ordinary food does not satisfy the appetite. The system feels a want, a craving, for something more stimulating. She was describing how chronic irritation of the digestive system creates a cycle of craving for increasingly stimulating substances. This understanding of how mild stimulants prepare the way for stronger ones was absolutely pioneering. Current research in gastroenterology and addiction medicine has confirmed this connection. Studies have shown that chronic consumption of irritating substances does indeed alter digestive function and can contribute to cravings for stronger stimulants. Ellen White's insight about the connection between digestive irritation and addictive cravings has been validated by modern research. But Ellen White's most controversial insights concerned tea and coffee, substances that billions of people consume daily without a second thought. Listen to her shocking analysis. Tea acts as a stimulant and, to a certain extent, produces intoxication. The action of coffee and many other popular drinks is similar. The first effect is exhilarating. The nerves of the stomach are excited. These convey irritation to the brain, and this in turn is aroused to impart increased action to the heart and short-lived energy to the entire system. She was describing the exact mechanism of caffeine action decades before anyone understood neurotransmitters or brain chemistry. She knew that caffeine didn't provide real energy. It created a false stimulation that borrowed energy from the body's reserves. Modern pharmacology has proven Ellen White's description of caffeine action remarkably accurate. Research has shown that caffeine does indeed stimulate the central nervous system, increase heart rate, and create a temporary feeling of energy. Studies have confirmed that this energy is borrowed. Caffeine blocks adenosine receptors, preventing the brain from recognizing fatigue, but it doesn't actually restore energy. Ellen White's next insight was even more controversial. Fatigue is forgotten. The strength seems to be increased. The intellect is aroused. The imagination becomes more vivid. Because of these results, many suppose that their tea or coffee is doing them great good, but this is a mistake. She understood that the apparent benefits of caffeine were deceptive. The increased alertness and mental clarity that people experience aren't actual improvements. They're artificial stimulation that comes at a cost. Current neuroscience research has validated this insight. Studies have shown that while caffeine can temporarily improve certain aspects of cognitive performance, it doesn't actually enhance natural brain function. Research has revealed that regular caffeine users are often just returning to normal function when they consume caffeine rather than achieving enhanced performance. Then Ellen White revealed the hidden cost of this artificial stimulation. Tea and coffee do not nourish the system. Their effect is produced before there has been time for digestion and assimilation, and what seems to be strength is only nervous excitement. When the influence of the stimulant is gone, the unnatural force abates, and the result is a corresponding degree of languor and debility. She understood that caffeine's effects are immediate because it's a drug, not a nutrient. She knew that the energy boost was temporary and would be followed by a crash. This understanding of the pharmacokinetics of caffeine was remarkably advanced. Modern research has confirmed every aspect of Ellen White's analysis. Studies have shown that caffeine is indeed rapidly absorbed and produces immediate effects through drug action rather than nutritional value. Research has documented the crash phenomenon, showing that caffeine withdrawal creates fatigue, depression, and decreased cognitive performance. But Ellen White didn't stop with describing caffeine's immediate effects. She understood the long-term consequences. The continued use of these nerve irritants is followed by headache, wakefulness, palpitation of the heart, indigestion, trembling, and many other evils, for they wear away the life forces. She was describing what we now recognize as the symptoms of chronic caffeine consumption and withdrawal. Her list of side effects reads like a modern medical textbook on caffeine-related disorders. Current medical research has validated every symptom Ellen White listed. Studies have documented that chronic caffeine use can indeed cause headaches, sleep disturbances, heart palpitations, digestive problems, and anxiety. Research has shown that caffeine does wear away the life forces by disrupting natural sleep cycles, increasing stress hormones, and depleting adrenal function. Ellen White's most profound insight concerned the progressive nature of stimulant addiction. Tired nerves need rest and quiet instead of stimulation and overwork. Nature needs time to recuperate her exhausted energies. When her forces are goaded on by the use of stimulants, more will be accomplished for a time. But as the system becomes debilitated by their constant use, it gradually becomes more difficult to rouse the energies to the desired point. She understood that stimulants don't actually solve the problem of fatigue, they mask it while making it worse. This insight about the self-defeating nature of stimulant use was revolutionary. Modern addiction medicine has confirmed this principle. Research has shown that chronic stimulant use does indeed lead to a cycle where increasing amounts are needed to achieve diminishing effects. Studies have documented that stimulants can actually worsen the fatigue and depression they're meant to treat. Then Ellen White described something that sounds eerily familiar to anyone who's tried to quit caffeine. The demand for stimulants becomes more difficult to control until the will is overborne, and there seems to be no power to deny the unnatural craving. Stronger and still stronger stimulants are called for, until exhausted nature can no longer respond. She was describing caffeine addiction and the progressive escalation that can lead to stronger substances. This understanding of how innocent stimulants can create the neurological patterns of addiction was far ahead of her time. Current addiction research has validated this progression. Studies have shown that caffeine dependence is real and can involve tolerance, withdrawal, and loss of control. Research has documented that people with caffeine addiction have higher rates of other substance use disorders. But Ellen White's most shocking revelations concerned tobacco. Her insights about this substance were so accurate and detailed that they read like a modern anti-smoking campaign. She wrote, "Tobacco is a slow, insidious, but most malignant poison. In whatever form it is used, it tells upon the constitution. It is all the more dangerous because its effects are slow and at first hardly perceptible." She understood that tobacco's danger lies partly in its stealth. Unlike alcohol, which produces immediate obvious effects, tobacco works gradually, making its damage harder to recognize until it's severe. Modern medical research has validated this description completely. Studies have shown that tobacco-related diseases often develop over decades, making the connection between smoking and health problems less obvious to users. Research has confirmed that tobacco is indeed a malignant poison. The term Ellen White used accurately describes tobacco's cancer-causing properties. Ellen White's understanding of tobacco's neurological effects was remarkably advanced. It excites and then paralyzes the nerves. It weakens and clouds the brain. Often it affects the nerves in a more powerful manner than does intoxicating drink. She knew that tobacco was both a stimulant and a depressant, exciting the nervous system initially, but ultimately damaging it. Her comparison to alcohol's neurological effects showed she understood that tobacco was potentially even more harmful to brain function. Current neuroscience has proven Ellen White correct. Research has shown that nicotine does indeed have biphasic effects, stimulation followed by depression. Studies have documented that chronic tobacco use causes more widespread brain damage than alcohol in some areas, particularly affecting cognitive function and neurotransmitter balance. Perhaps most remarkably, Ellen White understood tobacco's role as a gateway drug. Its use excites a thirst for strong drink, and in many cases lays the foundation for the liquor habit. This insight about tobacco leading to alcohol use was decades ahead of addiction research. She understood that the neurological changes caused by tobacco create vulnerability to other addictive substances. Modern epidemiological studies have confirmed this connection. Research has shown that tobacco users have significantly higher rates of alcohol addiction. Studies have documented that the neurobiological changes caused by nicotine do indeed increase susceptibility to other substances. Ellen White also understood the social and environmental impact of tobacco use. Its devotees are encountered everywhere. You rarely pass through a crowd, but some smoker puffs his poisoned breath in your face. It is unpleasant and unhealthful to remain in a railway car or in a room where the atmosphere is laden with the fumes of liquor and tobacco. She was describing second-hand smoke exposure decades before anyone understood its health effects. She knew that tobacco use affected not just the user, but everyone around them. Modern research on second-hand smoke has validated Ellen White's concerns completely. Studies have shown that environmental tobacco smoke is indeed a serious health hazard, causing cancer, heart disease, and respiratory problems in non-smokers. Ellen White's recognition of tobacco as a public health issue was far ahead of her time. Her observations about tobacco's effects on children and youth were particularly prophetic. Among children and youth, the use of tobacco is working untold harm. The unhealthful practices of past generations affect the children and youth of today. Mental inability, physical weakness, disordered nerves, and unnatural cravings are transmitted as a legacy from parents to children. She understood that tobacco use could have intergenerational effects, damaging not just the user, but their children. This insight about hereditary consequences was remarkable for her time. Modern research has confirmed that tobacco use does indeed have intergenerational effects. Studies have shown that parental smoking affects children's brain development, increases their risk of addiction, and can cause genetic changes that are passed to future generations. Ellen White's understanding of epigenetic effects preceded the science by over a century. Ellen White was particularly concerned about children starting tobacco use. Boys begin the use of tobacco at a very early age. The habit thus formed, when body and mind are especially susceptible to its effects, undermines the physical strength, dwarfs the body, stupefies the mind, and corrupts the morals. She understood that nicotine addiction was particularly damaging when it began in childhood. Her description of tobacco's effects on developing brains and bodies was remarkably accurate. Current pediatric research has validated every aspect of Ellen White's warning. Studies have shown that nicotine addiction is indeed more severe when it begins in adolescence. Research has documented that teen tobacco use does affect physical development, cognitive function, and decision-making abilities. But Ellen White's insights reached beyond individual health effects to address the hypocrisy she saw in adult tobacco use. But what can be done to teach children and youth the evils of a practice of which parents, teachers, and ministers set them the example? She understood that adult modeling was more powerful than any anti-drug message. She recognized the contradiction of adults using tobacco while trying to teach children to avoid harmful substances. Modern research in developmental psychology has confirmed the power of adult modeling. Studies have shown that parental substance use is one of the strongest predictors of adolescent substance use. Ellen White's insight about the importance of adult example has been validated by decades of research. Now let's examine Ellen White's revelations about alcohol, insights that were so advanced they predicted many of the social problems we see today. She wrote about the alcohol industry with remarkable clarity. For the money they receive, no equivalent is returned. Every dollar they add to their gains has brought a curse to the spender. She understood that the alcohol industry profits from human misery. She saw that alcohol sales represent a fundamentally exploitative business model, selling addiction and suffering for profit. Modern economic analysis of the alcohol industry has validated Ellen White's assessment. Studies have shown that the alcohol industry does indeed profit primarily from heavy drinkers and people with alcohol use disorders. Research has documented that the majority of alcohol sales come from people who are drinking at harmful levels. Ellen White's description of alcohol's effects on the brain was remarkably sophisticated. The wine cup makes the intellect weak and confused. It inflames the passions, and this prepared the man becomes an easy prey to Satan, who stands ready to push him to any lengths in iniquity. She understood that alcohol impairs judgment and self-control, making people vulnerable to poor decisions and destructive behavior. This understanding of alcohol's cognitive effects was far ahead of neuroscience. Modern brain imaging studies have confirmed Ellen White's description. Research has shown that alcohol does indeed impair the prefrontal cortex, reducing judgment and impulse control. Studies have documented that alcohol use increases risky behavior and poor decision-making in exactly the ways Ellen White described. Her observations about alcohol's progressive nature were equally insightful. One taste of the maddening draught, and all thought of its results has vanished. The heartbroken wife is forgotten. The debauched father no longer cares that his children are hungry and naked. She understood that alcohol addiction involves a loss of the very care and concern that might motivate someone to quit. This insight about how addiction undermines its own cure was psychologically sophisticated. Current addiction research has validated this insight. Studies have shown that alcohol does indeed impair the emotional and moral reasoning that might otherwise motivate behavior change. Research has documented that alcohol addiction can temporarily suppress normal parental and marital bonds. Ellen White also understood the broader social costs of alcohol: houses of prostitution, dens of vice, criminal courts, prisons, almshouses, insane asylums, hospitals, all are to a great degree filled as a result of the liquor seller's work. She was doing epidemiological analysis decades before public health statistics were widely available. She understood that alcohol was a major contributing factor to crime, mental illness, poverty, and social dysfunction. Modern epidemiological research has confirmed Ellen White's observations. Studies have shown that alcohol is indeed a major factor in crime, domestic violence, mental health problems, and healthcare costs. Her understanding of alcohol's broad social impact was remarkably accurate. Perhaps most remarkably, Ellen White understood the deceptive marketing practices that would become standard in the alcohol industry. In private lunchrooms and fashionable resorts, ladies are supplied with popular drinks under some pleasing name that are really intoxicants. She was describing marketing strategies that wouldn't become widespread until decades later, disguising alcohol content, targeting women specifically, and using appealing names to hide the true nature of alcoholic products. Modern analysis of alcohol marketing has documented exactly these practices. Research has shown that the alcohol industry does indeed use deceptive naming, targets vulnerable populations, and minimizes the alcohol content in their marketing. Ellen White predicted modern alcohol marketing strategies with remarkable accuracy. She even understood how the alcohol industry would target children. To create the liquor appetite in little children, alcohol is introduced into confectionery. Such confectionery is sold in the shops, and by the gift of these candies, the liquor seller entices children into his resorts. She was describing what we now recognize as early exposure marketing, introducing children to alcohol through candy and other appealing products to create future customers. Current research has documented that early exposure to alcohol does indeed increase the likelihood of later addiction. Studies have shown that alcohol-containing candy and other products aimed at children are part of a deliberate strategy to create future consumers. But Ellen White didn't just describe these problems, she understood their solutions. She wrote, "In relation to tea, coffee, tobacco, and alcoholic drinks, the only safe course is to touch not, taste not, handle not." This might sound extreme, but Ellen White understood something that modern addiction medicine has confirmed. For truly addictive substances, complete abstinence is often the only effective approach. She knew that moderation is often impossible once addiction patterns are established. Current addiction treatment research has validated this approach. Studies have shown that complete abstinence is indeed the most effective treatment for severe addiction to alcohol, tobacco, and other substances. Research has confirmed that controlled use is often ineffective for people with established addiction patterns. Ellen White also understood the difficulty of breaking these habits. The tendency of tea, coffee, and similar drinks is in the same direction as that of alcoholic liquor and tobacco, and in some cases, the habit is as difficult to break as it is for the drunkard to give up intoxicants. She recognized that caffeine addiction, while less dramatic than alcohol or tobacco addiction, operates on the same neurological principles and can be equally difficult to overcome. Modern research has confirmed that caffeine withdrawal is real and can be severe. Studies have shown that caffeine dependence meets the clinical criteria for substance dependence and can be as difficult to overcome as other addictions. But Ellen White offered hope for recovery. Those who attempt to leave off these stimulants will for a time feel a loss and will suffer without them. But by persistence, they will overcome the craving and cease to feel the lack. Nature may require a little time to recover from the abuse she has suffered, but give her a chance, and she will again rally and perform her work nobly and well. She understood that recovery was possible, but required time and persistence. She knew that the body has remarkable healing capacity if given the chance to recover from chemical abuse. Modern addiction recovery research has validated this optimistic view. Studies have shown that the brain and body can indeed recover from substance abuse, but the process takes time and commitment. Research has documented that natural energy, mood, and cognitive function do return after successful withdrawal from stimulants and other substances. Ellen White's broader insight was that these substance problems weren't just individual issues. They were social and spiritual problems that required comprehensive solutions. She wrote, It must be kept before the people that the right balance of the mental and moral powers depends in a great degree on the right condition of the physical system. She understood that substance abuse affects not just physical health, but mental clarity and moral decision-making. This holistic view of addiction as affecting body, mind, and spirit was ahead of its time. Modern addiction medicine has embraced this holistic approach. Research has shown that successful addiction treatment must address physical, psychological, social, and often spiritual dimensions of recovery. Ellen White's integrated understanding of addiction anticipated modern treatment approaches. Perhaps most importantly, Ellen White understood that prevention was more effective than treatment. There would soon be little necessity for temperance crusades if in the youth who form and fashion society, right principles in regard to temperance could be implanted. She knew that the best approach to addiction was to prevent it from starting. She understood that education and character development in youth were the keys to creating a society free from substance abuse. Modern prevention research has validated this approach. Studies have shown that early prevention programs are indeed more effective and cost-efficient than treatment programs. Research has confirmed that building character strengths and decision-making skills in youth is the most effective approach to preventing substance abuse. Ellen White's final insight was that substance abuse is ultimately a spiritual problem, requiring spiritual solutions. By the indulgence of perverted appetite, man loses his power to resist temptation. She understood that substance abuse weakens the very willpower and moral strength needed to overcome it. This creates a vicious cycle where addiction undermines the capacity for recovery. Modern neuroscience has confirmed this insight. Research has shown that addiction does indeed impair the brain regions responsible for decision-making and impulse control. Studies have documented that substance abuse creates neurological changes that make it harder to resist temptation and make good choices. The evidence is overwhelming. Ellen White's insights about stimulants, narcotics, and addictive substances were not just morally motivated opinions. They were scientifically accurate predictions about how these substances affect human health, behavior, and society. Her understanding of addiction neurobiology, progressive dependence, and social consequences was decades ahead of medical science. But perhaps the most profound aspect of Ellen White's teaching is her understanding that these aren't just health issues, they're character issues. She saw that what we put into our bodies affects not just our physical health, but our mental clarity, emotional stability, and moral strength. The question she posed over a century ago remains urgent today. Will you choose substances that enhance your natural capacities, or will you accept the false energy and temporary pleasure that comes at the cost of your long-term health and character? Ellen White showed us that the path to true vitality doesn't come from artificial stimulation, but from working with our body's natural systems. She revealed that real energy comes from proper rest, nutrition, exercise, and spiritual connection, not from chemical crutches that borrow from tomorrow's strength. The silent poisons are all around us, marketed as normal parts of modern life. But Ellen White gave us the knowledge to recognize them for what they truly are: substances that promise energy but deliver exhaustion, that offer pleasure but create pain, that seem to enhance life but ultimately diminish it. The choice is yours. You can continue consuming these hidden poisons, accepting their temporary benefits while ignoring their long-term costs. Or you can embrace the path Ellen White illuminated, a life of true vitality based on natural principles that enhance rather than exploit your body's amazing capacity for health and energy. Your body is a temple, as Ellen White taught. Every substance you consume is either honoring that temple or defiling it. The hidden dangers have been revealed. The truth about these silent poisons is now clear. The only question remaining is, what will you choose?